Hello and welcome to the Society with Fatma Shaheen at PTB World. Today on our show, we'll be talking about the holy month of Ramadan. In this regard, we'll also be talking about, of course, the act of fasting. When we talk about Ramadan, we must understand the fact, that what all does it actually entail? What is the true spirit of Ramadan? Whereas at one end, we all understand the fact that yes, fasting is that one act in which we definitely abstain from food and drink, that too during the fasting hours. What we cannot ignore is that, of course, Ramadan and the true essence of Ramadan is just not based on that. It is about much more. It is about spiritual reflection. It is, of course, about improving one's connection with God. It is also about giving back to the society. To what extent have we or have we not been able to live up to all these ideals? This is something upon which we'll be shedding light today. In this regard, we'll also be shedding light upon, of course, the impact of Ramadan on people's health, be it individuals or public at large. We'll also be talking about the environmental impact of Ramadan too. And in this regard, we'll also be shedding light upon the fact, we have seen that, recently the government has launched Ramadan relief packages. What will be the scope and, of course, the effectiveness of the same, that too with regards to supporting vulnerable groups in the Pakistani society. This is also something upon which we'll be shedding light today. All of this today, that too with an extremely pertinent panel. Let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for today's show is Sheikh Jahangir Saab. He's an Islamic scholar. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and welcome to the show. Alongside him, I have Dr. Farzeen Malik. She is a celebrity doctor and a dietitian. Assalamu alaikum, madam, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting.
And my third panelist for today's show is Ms. Hania Rifat. She's a youth activist and she's also a social worker. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you, Fatma, for having me.
Now, before we start the discussion on today's topic, let's have a look at this brief report.
In the heart of the Islamic calendar lies a month of profound significance, Ramadan. Lasting 29 or 30 days, it's a time of reflection, spiritual growth, and community. But what exactly is the spirit of Ramadan? The spirit of Ramadan is deeply rooted in self-discipline, empathy, and devotion. Muslims around the world observe fasting from dawn till sunset, abstaining from food, drink, and other physical needs. As the sun sets, families and communities come together for iftar, the evening meal breaking the fast. It's a time of sharing, gratitude, and generosity. This spirit of giving extends beyond family and friends, reaching out to those in need, strengthening the social fabric of communities. But Ramadan is more than a spiritual journey. It has tangible impacts on society and the economy. In Pakistan, Ramadan serves as a catalyst for increased economic activity. Markets bustle with shoppers, businesses flourish, and charitable donations surge. Moreover, Ramadan fosters a sense of unity and compassion, prompting individuals and organizations to engage in philanthropic activities. From feeding the hungry to supporting healthcare initiatives, the spirit of giving back permeates every aspect of society. Yet amidst the hustle and bustle, it's essential to consider the nutritional aspect of fasting. While abstaining from food and drink during daylight hours, it's crucial to maintain a balanced diet during sahur and iftar. Incorporating fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and lean proteins can help ensure adequate nutrition. Moreover, staying hydrated is paramount. Consuming plenty of water and hydrating fluids between iftar and sahur can prevent dehydration and fatigue, ensuring a healthy and fulfilling Ramadan experience. But Ramadan isn't just about personal growth, it's also about contributing to the welfare of others. In Pakistan, the concept of sadaqah or voluntary charity takes center stage during the sacred month. Whether through zakat, donations, or volunteering, there's a collective effort to uplift the less fortunate. In today's digital age, social media plays a significant role in shaping Ramadan experiences. Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram provides a platform for Muslims to connect, share, and inspire one another. From sharing recipes to organizing charitable events, social media amplifies the spirit of Ramadan, fostering global solidarity. In conclusion, Ramadan transcends mere abstention. It's a time of spiritual renewal, communal unity, and social upliftment. From fostering empathy and generosity to promoting healthy habits and social cohesion, Ramadan serves as a beacon of light, illuminating hearts and minds across Pakistan and beyond. May this Ramadan be a source of blessing, peace, and prosperity for all.
Welcome back. We just saw this report. Now to get the conversation started with you, sir. When we do talk about fasting, something that we do need to understand at a very basic level is the true essence of fasting. Whereas, of course, we do understand the fact that it is that one act in which we do definitely physically abstain from eating and drinking. Would it be fair to say that we as a Pakistani society have also been able to understand the true spirit of Ramadan, the spirit which actually focuses on improving oneself during Ramadan and, of course, giving back to the society by that yardstick too?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think that we have failed as a society and a nation to educate properly our children, and who are now, like my children, have their own children, to realize why and what stands behind any ritual of religion. So, for example, fasting as we're speaking of today, there is a reason for that. There are goals already defined. So
Exactly.
the Quran says that you are supposed to fast لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may become more God conscious. So on the surface of it, we seem to be abstaining from food and drink, but the actual intention and the goal here is to become more pious people.
At least to reflect upon oneself, that too critically, sir, and more so to give back to the society as well, because Ramadan has this inherent spirit of being more compassionate and more kind towards others. Madam, coming towards you, when we talk about this from a nutritional aspect, what do you feel are the biggest benefits of anybody fasting? Because we do know intermittent fasting is there, which has been there for ages. But of course, religious fasting is something that we are focusing upon. So as a nutritionist, what do you feel are the biggest benefits of fasting for anybody?
I think the fasting that we are observing has been much more, has been there before what you are talking about, the intermittent fasting. And it is a way of life where one is actually claiming their health back from the 11 months that they have deteriorated it. So if we paraphrase the tools of modern neuroscience, it is said that fasting is one of the best ways to be spiritually more active, to be bodily more active, and to start making new cells, which is a process called autophagy.
Really?
And autophagy is the raging thing nowadays. People are talking about it. They're saying that we should, first of all, if you remember and if you recall, intermittent fasting has certain windows. If you increase the window, in our case, we do 30 to 29 fasts, right, in the month of Ramadan.
Right.
That causes autophagy, which means that your dead cells are gone and your body is rerouting.
It's rejuvenated.
Rejuvenated is something which is a little bit short of what is happening actually. It's becoming more active, it's becoming a new being.
The whole system is being completely reset.
Exactly. If you just take a glimpse at the realms of the history, you do see that a lot of spiritual leaders used to fast to get close to their focus
Right.
of God and His existence and the universe.
Right.
So,
So it
fasting-
reiterates the theme which sir was saying.
It's all connected, the whole body, the whole science of the body is, I mean, the creator created it, right? So he knows the manual. I mean, you don't have to, the manual is the Quran and the manual is the perfect way of life.
Right.
But unfortunately, what really goes wrong is the kind of nutrition that we have during Ramadan.
Right. That's very rightly put by yourself, madam, on which I'll come to you, Hania, and in this regard, I would want you to contribute to the discussion as well. So when we talk about the economics of Ramadan, we all understand the fact that it does impact us socially from the way we celebrate Ramadan, the impact it has on the economy as well. But recently, we've seen that both at a federal level as well as at a provincial level, various Ramzan relief packages have been introduced. How effective do you feel will these be in supporting the vulnerable segments in the Pakistani society?
Federal government government under Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has announced subsidy on food items that is going to go a long way in terms of alleviating the financial burden economically vulnerable segments of our society. At the same time, Punjab government under our new Chief Minister has announced families will be benefiting from special Ramzan packages. These are going to be ration bags that will be delivered at their footstep. And what is very positive is that it is a digital way they've launched in order to apply for these ration bags.
Right.
That means there's going to be accessibility for more people as well as preserving your dignity. You don't have to go anywhere,
Exactly.
look for a ration bag or ask for it. It will come on your
Which
your
is
doorstep.
extremely important, because you see that is a very important differentiating factor. But when we talk about this overall, like from an economic perspective, yes, we do understand that these are definitely very welcome initiatives taken by the Pakistani government. When it comes to reducing the negative environmental impact greater food wastage of Ramzan can bring with it, what are the issues you feel that we can address in this regard? Because we all cannot ignore the fact that when it comes to Ramzan, there is a high possibility of people wasting more food on Sahur and Iftar, and then definitely because of all the cooking, there's definitely more energy consumption as well.
Of course. So if I give you an instance of restaurants, so now we're not going to have dinner, we're going to have iftar first and dinner. People actually overestimate their hunger, so they're going to add more food in iftar and then they're going to have more food in dinner. Food wastage increases exponentially in Ramzan, especially when we look at our restaurants. At the
Right.
same time, at times of Sahur and iftar, because there will be greater cooking, there's going to be more natural gas that will be used. So the energy consumption is going to increase, which will naturally be impacting the environment in terms of greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
So we need to make sure that whenever we're adopting a Ramzan routine, it is sustainable and environmentally sustainable. More
Right, because we
specifically.
can't ignore the impact that it does
Exactly.
have on the environment too. And this is unfortunately an angle which is often ignored. Nobody talks about it. So coming towards you, when we do talk about Ramadan, that too from the religious perspective, for the clarity of the audience, can you tell us that when we talk about people missing out on their fast or not being able to fast, maybe for a very valid reason, what exemption or what leverage do they get in Islam for doing just that?
Well, primarily every Muslim, male or female, who is sane and adult and healthy has to fast. Now, those people who are, for example, extremely old, who are so old that they have come to a stage of weakness, physical weakness, and they are they may not be invalid per se, but
Right.
still they are very weak now, they are exempt. And then there are people, for example, women who have to feed their children, and there's women who are expecting children. Obviously, they're going to be exempt for the fast. And then there are people who are not well. And for those people, there are two types. There's a person with a permanent disability or a permanent issue like permanently taking medicine thrice a day,
Right.
and they cannot hold out for the whole day or wait for the iftar to begin. They are also exempt from the iftar, but they have to give fidya,
Right.
which is to feed a person twice a day for every fast that they miss. And then there are people who generally might be feeling weak or they're recovering from an illness, or maybe they have a short-term illness like a flu or
Right.
maybe infection. These people will have to carry forward the fast and they will have to make up for it afterwards.
So a very clear line of distinction is then drawn amongst the different kind of illnesses. And so what if there is some kind of a gray area in actually identifying that person's illness? It might not be very permanent in nature, but it can be kind of disabling for them in terms of being able not to fast. So where do you draw that distinction then?
It's a very important thing. And I think that one should consult one's doctor or nutritionist maybe to
Right.
ask them what kind of effect on their health a fast is going to have. Let me add something as a bonus to the answer.
Please do.
If you doctor or if medically you're not supposed to fast, but out of pure emotion and pure desire to make the fast or complete the fast, you fast anyway, Islam will include that in self-harm.
This is a great addition to everybody's knowledge that way. Madam, coming towards you and of course leaving from where Sir left, when we do talk about people who are perhaps suffering from various chronic illnesses, be it diabetes, be it cardiovascular diseases, any other disease of this sort, how would you advise them to fast, keeping in mind their respective diseases?
People who are already fasting now, it is pertinent that they check their blood sugar levels and see how their body is now reacting to it and the kind of diet they are taking. For example, if a diabetic person at Sahur takes a very fried and fatty meal, be it paratha, be it something else, that's definitely going to mess up with their system. But if their choice is something whole wheat bread, then that is going to take care of their diabetic curve.
So they need to be very intelligent with regards to their eating as well.
Of course, and we are very emotional about our food.
True. As a society, we just love food.
And it's not just about loving, it's about an emotional insecurity also. And I see that even, first of all, at sahur, and then even at iftar, and then the post-iftar dinner.
Right.
People are actually rooted in to have as much as they can.
There's excessive eating, which takes me to my next question, yes.
Which is very anxiety driven.
But madam, you've raised a very valid point on which I would want you to deliberate further. So when we do talk about healthy nutritional choices, that too at iftar, or for that matter at suhoor, how do you propose can we do just that? Because like you yourself rightly so mentioned, we have this habit of binge eating and overeating. So how can we steer clear of all these oily foods?
It's a promise in your head that you have to make. That this Ramadan, you are going to rise up as a new individual who's more positive, who's more healthy, and who's a good part of the society. How do you do that? Number one, stay close to nature. Whenever you are close to nature, nature takes care of you more. The more you get close to refined items, the more you are getting your food off aisles from packets and boxes, the more catastrophic it is for your body, for the human being. So go natural, go for yogurts, homemade yogurt that's full of probiotics.
True.
Get unrefined grains, get brown rice, get brown bread, change from white to bread, right? And also try to have natural things more, like salads, like more
leafy
vegetables, yes, leafy greens, and more vegetables.
Right.
I think that, this is that opportunity which Allah Ta'ala has given you to reclaim yourself.
Right.
And if you do it the right way, I tell you, many of my patients get off their insulins, get off many medication, hypertension medication, their arthritis medicine
During
sometimes.
Ramadan, during the course of fasting.
If they do it in the right fervor and they do it the right way, by losing weight and feeling more energetic, not weak at the end of Ramadan.
Right. To start off with, we also need to understand that people need to have a control over their portion sizes. A lot of times they might be eating healthy, but they might not be doing it in moderation. It might not be balanced. So I think it would be very important for people who are actually seeking to lose weight or even gain weight for that matter to seek professional advice.
Yes, it is very pertinent. Number two, really important is the art of plating. You need to know what kind of things you are putting on your plate. So I usually tell my clients about the art of plating, which is you have a circular plate and you divide it into four. One part is your roti or your bread or your rice, which is the carbohydrate part. One part is your protein, or it could be vegetables. It could be fish, it could be poultry, it could be beef, whatever you want to have.
Right.
And one part is salad, which is the green leafy ones, and maybe the other rainbow of vegetables that you have. And the fourth part belongs to the yogurt.
Right.
Third point, which is very important, do not go for second helpings. Just make your plate once, stick to it, because that is going to derail you.
Right.
And you're completely off the bandwagon then.
On which I'll come to you, Hania, and here we must talk about this from a gender perspective. Now, we do understand the fact that yes, Ramadan is that one month where everybody strives to worship and self-reflect upon oneself. But a lot of times we see that, women perhaps might not get that ideal time to do so. So as a female yourself, how do you propose can we keep the gender dynamics in mind so as to be able to ensure that yes, women do what they have to do as per the societal norms, but at the same time they get ample time so as to fully comply with their religious obligations too?
As you've rightly mentioned, Ramzan is about self-reflection, kindness, compassion. So we need to reflect on gender roles, especially in our domestic context as well. So women are disproportionately burdened when it comes to looking after the family, especially in Iftar, Seher, making the food, managing their domestic responsibilities. So maybe sharing could be a positive approach. There could be rethinking of gender roles in Ramzan, so everybody in the house, irrespective of their gender, can focus on their prayers, can focus on worshipping, can focus on making the most out of this holy month. So maybe rethinking gender
Greater
roles.
inclusion.
Yes. Exactly, greater inclusion. And at the same time, I think women need to be given some time off. That means that you do not need to have very huge grand feasts in Ramzan in which women are going to
For
get.
which men need to take a very proactive role. On which, sir, I'll come to you. So what is the Islamic stance on this? Because it is very important that yes, women get that right to fulfill their religious obligations as much as anybody else does.
You see, if the norm is hurting someone, the norm has to change. And if this norm does hurt, because we've, I don't know, perhaps conveniently mistaken the act of giving away food in Ramadan to having feasts.
Right.
So the point was to share food with those who are less fortunate than yourselves, and not to overspend on your own relatives and to compete and show off for who has a bigger iftar table.
Right. Or not to overburden a
Which
certain,
results in that.
Exactly.
Which
strata.
results in overburdening the lady of the house. So I think that this norm has to change. And I think that we, and I'm going to say this to all the women out there and the men especially, because they have the power to change this dynamic.
Right. And they
They
must.
have to change it.
They should divide the responsibilities.
Because, let me warn them, when all of us will appear before our Lord, and this cruelty you perform towards people, including your own wife, especially Ramadan, you're going to answer for this.
True. Hania, coming back to you, when we talk about inclusion, another angle on which I would want you to touch upon is the role of education institutions. Now, we do see that in the holy month of Ramadan, you know, students of universities, of schools, of colleges, they are given that flexibility in terms of their academic schedules. But what about equally facilitating them with regards to perhaps providing healthy options in the school premises, or perhaps giving them those exclusive spaces where they can go and pray?
A lot of schools, a lot of educational institutions in our country do not have those spaces where one can pray. So maybe this Ramzan we could bring up policy structures, we could bring up frameworks in which we can actually think about this aspect. But apart from that, Ramzan is about praying, is about worshipping, is about taking time out to give to our religious duties as well. So in COVID, we experimented with digital modes of education.
True.
So a lot of schools where you think that students, a lot of students, majority of the students do have the sort of access to internet, maybe switching to the digital realm, maybe switching to online classes can help students. Being a teacher myself, I feel that digital education can help them stay focused on their Ramzan routine as well.
And I feel inevitably all of us are somehow more prone to using social media more during fasting hours. The screen time, if you go through stats, that is definitely increased. Especially when you're fasting, if you have nothing to do, you're just going over your phone and seeing, you know, what everybody else is doing, looking forward to the iftar time and all. So why not use this time very constructively?
Exactly.
On which I'll come to you, sir, and I would want you to add to this further. So when we talk about this from the viewpoint of Muslims who are living abroad, that too in non-Muslim countries, how do you as an Islamic scholar propose can we work towards their inclusion, that too in the holy month of Ramadan? Because a lot of times we see that perhaps people around them would understand the very importance and very significance of fasting or Ramadan per se.
Well, in many non-Muslim countries, Muslim communities have become very influential and very structured, even for that matter. And they have parts in local politics as well and the community services. And in my own travels over the world, I've seen that many a times a simple and a short talk, an explanation to your colleagues or your boss or your neighbors about Ramadan, not only helps them understand what your needs are, and also it helps to come closer to them by sharing your common activity. For example, iftar, you can call up people who are non-Muslims,
Right.
can also join you in your iftar if you want.
But sir, when we talk about this more so from the viewpoint of social media, something on which you very rightly so touched, how do you over a period of time see our societal dynamics and the way we traditionally used to observe fast, that too in the holy month of Ramadan, that changing over a period of time? Because I presume that in the time that you were growing up, I feel social media was not a boomer that way.
Wasn't even
basically.
there, actually.
It wasn't even there. So do you feel this change has been something which has been for the better, or do you feel unfortunately it is something for the worse?
I think the biggest problem of social media, and that affects the Ramadan as well, is the illusion of social contact. Using social media platforms gives you the illusion that you have actually met someone, that you have wished your father a happy birthday, or you wish your cousin Eid Mubarak. Well, back in the day, it was more of a personal contact. You had to go somewhere, or you would write a letter and post it. And people would come together to each other's houses, somebody would bring something else. I was in Cape Town a few months ago for a conference, and they told me that in the Muslim quarters over there, it's a non-Muslim country again, what they would do is very interesting, is that when they would say, have what you want and return the rest. So if nothing came back, they understood that it was less food that they had sent.
Right, sir, your point is noted. On which I'll come to you, Dr. Saib, and here we must talk about this very pressing issue, a question which is very often asked, which is that of a lot of people wanting to lose weight, that too during Ramadan. Now, we see a lot of people resorting to all these keto diets, to detox diets, to lean meals. How healthy is it to do just that? Because we do understand that all these diets, they do come with their own baggage as well.
That's true. There's a constant conundrum going on about all these fad diets, and that's a question which is very frequently asked in my area of practice, whereby I feel that every individual is different from the other one, and there's not just a one size fits all type of a thing that you can do. So I personally don't really promote ketos or any other fad diet.
You don't endorse them.
I believe that every person has their own way of losing weight, has their own idiosyncrasies when it comes to their DNA, when it comes to their eating habits, when it comes to their health, and that needs to be put forth. What might be working for you might not work for me, because I'm a completely different human. So, and also I believe that Ramadan is about discipline, right? So, I mean, the way there's dawn, there's dusk, there's a whole system going on in the universe which is more about discipline. Once you discipline yourself in every aspect of life, not just eating, and when it comes to eating, you can resort to tibbi nabwi, you can resort to barley porridge, you can resort to dry fruits, you can resort to all the foods which are mentioned in tibbi nabwi and also in the Quran. Those are the foods which are not going to make you feel weak, which are going to make you lose weight, but to be had in moderation and in a balance.
Here, what is very important for us to address is also the fact that question which is very commonly asked is the fact that people complain that they very easily get dehydrated during the fast. So, what kind of foods should they consume to steer clear of such dehydration?
All right, so because this is a longer period where you're not rehydrating yourself or having water, you should be careful about not having fried and fatty foods, which is exactly what we do, right? Things which pakoras and samosas are things which probably you'd like to have in a nice weather when it's raining, maybe once in a blue moon. But those are the kinds of food that is sitting on your table, on your spread every day. Amount of spices that we use, that needs to come down. Also, the amount of salt intake has to be reduced. You do know that sodium causes you to be thirsty more.
Of course.
Right? And also is bad for your blood pressure. Also, it is mandatory that you keep rehydrating yourself in the relaxation hours. You keep having glasses of water, and they should be at room temperature. If you want to change the accent of the water, you can put in a little bit of mint leaves. Mint leaves hold in water. You can put in a little bit of cucumber. Cucumber also holds in water.
Juices.
Yeah, fresh juices actually cause a sugar spike. And I usually see that people have fresh juices empty stomach. That causes a sugar spike and your insulin goes topsy-turvy.
Oh, so that's
detrimental. If you really want to have this sort of a thing, then have it with the fiber. Once it is carried on with the fiber, once the fiber boat is there to take it to the right place, your glycemic index is going to control itself, and you're not going to feel thirsty or hungry at the end of the fast.
On which I'll come to you, Hania, and here we must talk about this from the viewpoint of young children and of course young adults who are growing up. So considering we have been raised in a culture where there's so much stress on eating, and this is something which Dr. Sahiba very rightly so mentioned earlier during the conversation, how do you propose can parents educate their children, sensitize their children about the very significance of Ramadan? Because you're the youngest on the panel, I feel that this question is very appropriate for you too.
We've seen models in different Muslim countries like Egypt, Indonesia, where digital media is being used in a very effective way to communicate how a Ramzan schedule should look like, what are the sort of rituals people should be following in Ramzan. But we see that in Pakistan there's a lot of diversity in terms of the way people practice Ramzan, in which we see that people have very different rituals. So families, they can use digital medium, of course that is available, but at the same time I think community understanding, having more people come over, children come over, having more community interactions can teach them the sort of norms of Ramzan that they truly want them to be used to or accustomed to.
The training is something which should start at a very early age, because
Absolutely.
the earlier you start, the easier it is to get your message across, and that too in a manner which is very natural. Parents can learn to lead by example.
Parents have a very instrumental role in the upbringing of the child. Children do follow the footsteps of their parents. So parents are role models for them in terms of whatever they do, especially the sort of rituals they're following, the sort of belief system they have. The best way for them to teach their children is to lead by example.
Right. But in this regard, Hania, would you not agree with me when I say that you see this is an issue which needs to be addressed in a more broader international context? Because a lot of times we see that Muslim children who are being raised abroad, they might suffer from that youth or cultural identity crisis, so to speak, too.
Forging closer community ties can help. Muslims are a majority in Muslim countries, but at the same time they are a significant portion of the population in non-Muslim countries as well. So there, interacting closely with community members can help give children an exposure into what Islamic identity is, into how the Islamic culture of Ramzan is observed. So forging closer community ties and helping children stay connected with religious education, irrespective of their locality, irrespective of their geography, can help them give a closer insight into Islam.
Right. And community outreach is extremely important in this regard too. Sir, which I'll come to you, and here we must talk about the extremely important role of religious leaders like yourself, that too is mobilizing the community. Now, we did see that in the times of the COVID-19 pandemic, religious scholars played a very important part when it came to dispelling so many myths which actually surrounded the COVID-19. So when we talk about this from the Ramadan perspective, how can people like yourself lead movements, that to educational movements, so as to educate people generally about the social injustice in the society, be it that relating to health disparities, be it that relating to education or lack thereof, or even poverty at a very basic level?
Well, obviously the vehicle today to talk to people is the social media. But I think one of the most important things we miss out in Ramadan is sharing, and sharing with everybody, sharing with particularly the people who are less fortunate, people who cannot afford to live the way the middle class or above lives. One of the examples I like to give is that for myself, I haven't worn a new set of clothes on Eid for the last 20 years or so. I refuse to do it because I have plenty of clothes to wear. I think too much of them to wear even sometimes. And I think this year, if we start to understand that Ramadan and Eid is about giving away as well. So give away something that you have instead of piling up your plates and gathering the huge entourage of your relatives and friends on Ramadan. Collect together people less fortunate and share what you have.
That's very right. And in this regard, then you see spiritual activism is something that we do need to prioritize. Then we need to self-introspect, we need to work towards better spiritual reflection, and in the course of doing that, we must take humanitarian efforts along as well. But do you not feel that today, considering that the inflation is so high, how particularly do you feel can we do just that? Is it an easy task to do?
The good doctor just spoke about our love or obsession with food. We also have obsession with money as well. I think we are too obsessed with having more and more. I like to tell my friends that let's say you lose 10% of your income today. And talking about people who are reasonably all right, and they say, we'll manage. And I said, then manage it for 10%. Give away 10%, give away 5%. You know, you have, in how many of the houses that we live in the middle class and above, there is leftover food even in the houses, not restaurants only. and that 3 extra pakoras or that 2 extra sandwiches, that extra plate of rice
That could really
can
make a
feed
difference.
somebody pretty well.
So it all goes back to the basics, basically understanding, appreciating and practicing the true essence of Ramadan, on which I'll come to you, madam, and here we must talk about this from the viewpoint of course, nutritionists like yourself. Now, we do understand the fact that you have been a very strong voice on healthy choices, on nutrition, even wellness generally, on TV channels, and in this regard, you've also done an ad yourself too. So how do you see the role of healthcare professionals, that too nutritionists like yourself, that evolving over a period of time so as to make the general common Pakistani person out there more aware about their health, about the importance of wellness?
Okay, so I feel that the media has played a big role, and it's enormous in the sense there are questions which the new generation wants to know about food, and I must say that I must give it to them that they're very well educated and they have a very they have a repertoire of very good questions about food and nutrition. And I feel that over the years, over the past 10 years, this part has, I have good news in the sense that people are more promising to the idea of good health, good living, reclaiming your life, and exercising. The gyms are
mental health is such a big priority now.
Of course, yes, mental health. Then body and mental health is interlinked.
Very right.
You do know about neuroplasticity, working more and becoming more plastic after you start observing the fast.
Right.
It is more of a mind sharpening. Your capabilities, your intellectual, cognitive and intellectual skills get better after fasting.
That's so true.
And this is something which I feel that the digital media is providing to the people, and they are absorbing it. I feel that the spreads are getting better now, more
and
healthier.
I think the credit must be given to people like yourself as well, even other nutritionists or healthcare professionals, educating the public out there.
That's true, but at the same time, there's also other sort of a negative propaganda from people who don't know much, and yet they are providing wrong sort of information.
That's so true.
So I feel that when people are resorting to digital media for information, which they usually do, they should always look up the profile of a person, of a reliable authority, rather than unreliable authority. Now, since I'm backed by a medical degree, I feel that you know, it is, one can't go without the other.
Right.
I mean, if you are treating a human diet-wise, then you must know what's the exact physiology, what is the exact DNA, how is the biochemistry going to work.
True.
So usually people, you know, like he said that usually people go and wear new clothes on Eids and give, you know, have very lavish spreads and everything. I think that people should spend some time, some energy, some money on getting advice from an expert.
That's so true.
When
This
it
is
comes to
something,
eating.
That's so true. And you see, that is the core fundamental. How would you expect somebody to do well in life if they are not healthy per se?
Correct.
So that is the very fundamental of living and living well. On which I'll come to you, Hania, and here we must talk about the extremely important role of electronic media. So in this regard, what kind of a narrative do you feel can electronic media set so as to ensure that yes, all the Ramadan talk shows, the Ramzan transmissions we actually have, they not only educate people about the true essence of Ramadan, but at the same time they also foster interfaith harmony?
Absolutely. As you see that in Ramzan, we'll see a lot of talk shows, we'll see a lot of programs that are speaking about the spirit of Ramzan, but the way they're portraying it, I feel there's a lot of room to do more in terms of educating people, in terms of bringing different perspectives about Ramzan, forging interfaith harmony, as you've rightly spoken. It also requires us to diversify our sources. It's not just news channels, it's not just entertainment channels that should be focusing on educating people. I believe there are other avenues closely connected with media, that is print media, that involves magazines. They could dedicate specific portions, special portions towards educating people about Ramzan. It could include different perspectives. As Sir was referring, that it's not just restaurants that are going to have a lot of extra food. Houses will also have it. So if we make dramas in which we focus on this particular aspect about how to use food
and how to waste it,
exactly,
how to conserve energy,
how to conserve
our resources,
how to lead a very environmentally sustainable routine, that is going to be a positive reinforcement. It is going to give people a role model. It's going to give people a sort of inspiration to follow. And I think media has a great role to play in it.
Media and also advertisements, because a lot of times we see there have been brands which have done their research so as to better align consumer preferences, that too in the month of Ramadan, and this is something which has worked to their benefit. Now a lot of people who would actually have Ramadan themed advertisements or any kind of content, they are prone to perhaps getting more likes or it being more popular. So you see, it's also a very intelligent marketing move that way as well, something which works both in the favor of the consumer as well as the brands. Sir, coming towards you and before we conclude today's show, so when it comes to wrapping up today's conversation, what are the tips that you would want to give to the people out there, especially those who would want to make a maximum use of the last 20 days of Ramadan particularly? How do you propose can they do just that?
I think that all of us should make 3 goals for Ramadan this year. One is we will devote time and energy to ourselves for introspection and self-improvement and healing. 2, make Ramadan more family quality time. Give more time to your family this Ramadan and celebrate it with your family. And 3, celebrate it with the less fortunate. So make it a goal. We have about 3 weeks to go or more. And make it a goal that these 3 things I'm going to work on: myself, my family, and my society.
Right, sir. On which I'll come to you, madam. So a question which is often asked, and taking advantage of your presence today, something that I would want you to address today is of course the fact that a lot of times we see people, more particularly young people, very conveniently missing on their sahurs. So what would your advice be to such people? Because clearly we understand that from a scientific viewpoint, this has its own dangers.
Very pertinent question, and it is very rampant that a lot of younger generation is missing out on their sahurs and sleeping through it. Also sleeping through it. That is, I must say that's most detrimental to the human to deprive itself of the sahur. Sahur itself has its own hormonal and its own spiritual benefits and its own nutritional benefits. That is the time when your growth hormone is at its best. That is the time when you should give it nutrition. Once you give your growth hormone the right nutrition, it will provide you with more. It will be more fruitful. So leaving out sahur is
extremely
a no-no
dangerous
practice and shouldn't be done at all.
Other than the medical aspect, even otherwise, you see, when we talk about observing the fast, the true essence of fasting is also to have a proper sahur meal.
Yes, and a proper iftar meal as well.
Right.
And also to make sure, I feel that when it's iftar time, it's better to stick to beverages or something very light, say your namaz and your tarawih, and then go for the main meal.
Right.
That is the best, because what you do is usually people have a lot of nitty-gritties at iftar time, and then they also have a post-iftar meal. That's not the right practice. That is going to make you gain weight at the end. That's going to make you have more cholesterol at the end of the Ramadan. That's probably going to land you up with more weight and more a higher blood pressure and maybe a bad diabetic curve as well.
Right. So basically the time management of the meals, that needs to be done very intelligently.
It's of prime essence.
Right. Yeah. On which I'll come to you, Hania, and before we conclude today's show. So how do you propose can young people like yourself give back to the society, especially in this very holy month? And not only people who perhaps might have the resources to do that, but even people who might belong from disadvantaged groups.
I've seen in the past 5-6 years, youth organizations have been playing a pivotal role in terms of community service during Ramzan. There are several initiatives that are led independently by organizations so that the spirit of Ramzan, the spirit of sharing, the spirit of donation could be increased exponentially. We see that a lot of Ramzan dastarkhans are set out by young people. Young girls are making the food themselves. They are distributing food. Young boys are helping people through drives, ration drives, through food meal drives, and I think these are very positive examples. I also believe that one aspect that maybe we should focus on this Ramzan is bringing the focus through environmental sustainability during Ramzan and to the actual spirit of Ramzan, the sort of activities one should be pursuing. So maybe shifting the focus on a more educational point of view, could help increase youth utility during Ramzan.
On which note, I would like to conclude today's show. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Saiba, and thank you so much, Ms. Hania, for your time today. Well, to conclude today's show, we generally spoke about fasting in the holy month of Ramadan. In this regard, we also spoke about the very spirit, the very essence of this holy month too. One thing that we do need to understand is that the core fundamental, the core spirit of Ramadan is, of course, to be compassionate towards others, to be, more empathetic towards others, and in this regard, definitely to be more kind towards others, because they say it right when they say that, in a world where you can choose to be anything, you must definitely choose to be kind. Thank you for watching The Society. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.